go, everybody. We're back. The Neo and Dondo patch talk. It is a day to celebrate, I would say. We got a second iteration of PTR 1.36.2. So it's 1.36.2.2, basically. I was expecting this on Monday. Didn't appear. Was expecting this then on Tuesday. Didn't appear. Yesterday, I already made my mind that it won't come this week, and they will take another to read through all our suggestions and watch all the 700 billion videos we did. And I thought I have a free evening. But here we are. Blue posts in the Blizzard forums. And of course, the blue post is like a bat signal for this wonderful man. Right there. He's wearing an Atari t-shirt, but he's following the Blizzard games. Hello, Dondo.
Hello, hi, good evening. Yeah, I was pretty surprised as well. It's like both when the PTR was released originally now and this update was both like I didn't check anything, and then suddenly I'll see like 3 Discord messages, like a jump scare basically. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I think this one is very interesting actually to discuss. So it was cool to see a lot of changes.
Yeah, I agree. Do you feel quite powerful? Because a lot of these changes are coming from you, actually.
Well, to be fair, the changes are not coming from me. They're coming from a document we made based on feedback from a lot of people. So,
potato.
I mean, yes and no, I guess. I do think there's some stuff here that they obviously like intend to do on their own, and they're trying to like do some small changes depending on like the feedback we given. Maybe that's some things are powerful. So I think that's very important that they do have their mind of their own. That's good for us. It kind of gives us direction as well to like what we should approach. And also, but I do think, and of course, we don't give suggestions for not having any hope of them being listened to. But I guess this shows if you do it like if you do suggestions in a somewhat well proposed manner, you have some chance at least of getting heard, and I think that's a good thing. Especially when the developers are not that like communicative in what they're trying to do, right? So it's good that we kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, so. I agree. This feels really, really good because, of course, it's always a lot of work to put these patch notes together and think about what would be good for the game and what are the issues, etc. So yeah, this is really good, and I feel like as much as I was happy last time when we saw the second version of a patch, this last time it was more of a relief that the very crazy and dangerous stuff is not getting implemented. This time, it's less of a relief, but I dare to call it hype. I'm buzzing a bit. Like not everything feels right, but a lot of things feel very, very right. So we're going into this. We, of course, assume that you saw the PTR. We will not really explain the first PTR in length. We also assume that you watched most of our analysis, otherwise we just keep on repeating ourselves, and that is not the goal, because obviously Blizzard has already seen those videos. First and foremost, shout out to whoever put these together. Yeah, I know there's some typos in there. I don't really care much, but there is a updated change log from the PTR, the second iteration. There's also a master's version where all the current changes are implemented. This is very good. I did this for 3 years, and it's good that I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's super nice.
Yeah.
It should be given huge props for actually doing it correctly. It makes it a lot easier for everyone that's want to comment on it.
Indeed, and it's also way less confusing because in the previous patches, we never really know what patch is still in. Did they remove it? Did they not remove it? People couldn't remember, especially AKM. Shout out. So yeah, that's
he still doesn't know, to be fair.
Of course. Yeah. He just remembers the balance of 2002. That's totally fine. Bug fixes. Fixed an issue where ping was displayed incorrectly in the custom game list. I think this issue is 4 years old. No, pings were not displayed. 3 years old. So if that's fixed, cool. We don't really care. We are going into the nitty and the gritty. Dondo?
Yes?
I was yelling at people and the clouds and everything for the very, very first change. So I go into this with a very positive note. Arcane Tower Hero feedback reduced from 16 to 14. That means that less mana is getting burned when you're hit by an Arcane Tower.
Yeah.
should we discuss it like one at a time, or should I read all of these and then we discuss stuff?
What do you prefer, actually? I don't have like strong opinions either or.
All right. Then let's read them one more time, or one time, and present it to the people so everybody knows what's up, and then we discuss it in more detail. Knights and Sundering Blades no longer require the lumber mill to build. This is streamlining the tech tree a little bit to make knights more accessible at tier 3. And that goes hand in hand with the next patch, because you heard on the PTR that Sundering Blades is not automatically built into knights anymore. It has to be researched, and that costs more lumber now, or costs in general, it costs, and it also costs more than it previously did. One of the biggest talking points in the first version was that Polymorph, Master Spell of the Sorceress, is able to target heroes now, and the first iteration was 3 seconds of turning the enemy hero into a sheep. That is cut by 50% to 1.5. Orcs get the damage nerf on Troll Headhunter. Here, we have to be a little careful because it specifically says Troll Headhunter and not Troll Berserkers. Is that on purpose? Is that on accident? We'll see and we'll discuss. Healing Wards, Master Spell of the Witch Doctors, costs 50 less mana. Tauren are still available at tier 2, but take 5 seconds longer to build, and their inbuilt Pulverize ability, the mini Pulverize, is a little bit weaker. Night Elf, Podem Searing Arrow, does not only more damage on level 2 and 3, but it does more damage on level 1 and even more damage than the more damage on level 3. So this is almost an alternative to Poison Arrow now. Also, Starfall was tackled. It takes a shorter duration, a shorter amount of time for the ultimate to go fully through, from 45 to 30 seconds. And the damage is increased per star from 50 to 60, because obviously there's less stars now, but it's more impactful, basically. Keeper summons Treants, and this summon is cheaper now, from 100 to 85. In combination with that, the Moonwell changes that were implemented in patch 1.36 have been reverted. Moonwells in general give or have a higher regeneration now, but their Wellspring upgrade is weaker on tier 3. The Mountain Giant change on the first version was to bring them back to 6 supply instead of 7. That's been reverted. And for Undead, the Nerubian Tower, dreaded by Night Elves across the world, does not do melee damage or normal damage anymore. It does piercing damage now. Very interesting change that we have to discuss. Frost Nova slows units less long from 4-6-8 seconds, which was always pretty insane, to 5-4-6. So a little nerf on Nova. Impale costs less mana, more accessible. Death and Decay, Lich Ultimate costs less mana. Ghoul Frenzy, I think the entire Warcraft world is celebrating this. Research time up by 15 seconds. Web instead a little bit cheaper. Boneyard is also cheaper in gold. Plus, of course, the Frostworm change on the ability that was introduced in the first PTR. Wand of Negation was an item introduced with the latest PTR, a proposal at least. Instead of 3 charges, it now has 2. But it's also cheaper, but a single charge is more expensive than before. So, in general, a nerf to the Dispel item of the Undead, and a huge nerf to Curse, cut by 50%. From 2 minutes to 1 minute on units, from 1 minute to 30 seconds on heroes. Mana Shield gets the activation cost reduced from 25 to 10. Soulburn damage reduction is 75% now, which is quite crazy. And it lasts longer on heroes. Items get tackled as well. Arc of Reincarnation activation time. So if you die, the time to come back is now 5 seconds. And Gloves of Haste get a buff from 15% to 20%. Plus, a lot of changes on creeps that the map makers wanted for a long time. That's the status. And now, that was basically my role to present all these changes for you. Now comes Dondo's role and put this all in perspective. The human changes. Dondo.
I think it's when you discuss this, we probably should do like the changelog with everything, included the old and the new. So this is only the new, right? So we have the general master log there. I think because it makes it easier to put in context certain stuff. But yeah, we'll focus most on the new ones, I guess, but try to like do some synergy. I think the polymorph change is good. That you now reduce it from 3 seconds, and I think it's worth experimenting on. If it's like, should it be 1.5? Should it be 2? This is like these eternal discussions. I think it's hard to decipher, anyways. I guess even like 0.1 like disable is pretty powerful in the right timing. So if you want, we had like you could say like when we did our community suggestions that we kind of have to go like 2 ways with polymorph. You have to do some basically what this would be like rework in a way. So it now opens up a new avenue, or you make it cheaper. But making it cheaper doesn't change conceptually what the spell is, right? It's dispellable and doesn't work on heroes. I think this is interesting. I think this is worth trying at least. We have to maybe listen to the people that have been most like scared of this is the FFA community.
Yeah.
Maybe try to like hear if this is still like remaining a problem. But from what I see, also, it's not that human are like that powerful in FFA either, so maybe it's not that bad. I'm not sure. We kind of have to check. But I think this is an interesting change, and I think it's positive that when they are the developers are insisting on changes to a certain extent, it's not like our role necessarily, as long as we don't think it's super bad for the game to be, no, this is bad, don't do it. It's good that they kind of try to tweak it to make it more in line with what it should be, right? If it's to be implemented. So I think this is good. And it'd be interesting to check.
I would agree to what you say. This has to be observed carefully. So I would, like, usually the team of whoever is doing it, would disappear for another 6 months until it's time for the next patch cycle. If they keep the option open to hotfix this, that would be great, because it is a big change, and this can influence a lot, even though we don't expect it to be super strong in 1-on-1 on 2-on-2. The fact that there's an additional disable, a time where you can't really walk away, a time where you can't really use your items, or town port or whatever, that is scary, but I do see why they're doing it. I am not in panic mode. I am also in favor of experimenting with it if they stay around and listen to the community if this is indeed too strong.
Yeah. But it would be interesting. My first suspicion is that it won't be, but it could be interesting. At least what I hope with these changes is that people also try to implement it, even at the pro scene, to a certain more extent that they usually do. I feel like, it takes a long time before the changes are like slowly going into the real games. And I think this is like, maybe if we're against Undead, maybe you do a double Rax, double Workshop, 1 Sanctum build and tech up the Master Sork in the late game. It will be super powerful to stop some of the undead hero kiting, for instance, like stuff like that, which might be useful. So, I think it's an interesting change.
Yeah, I don't think I have to comment on the Arcane Tower feedback damage much. Originally, it was 12. It was buffed to 16. While in general, I appreciate a bit of a bit more stability for humans in the early game. 16 was crazy. The punishment for walking into Arcane Tower range was crazy. This is more reasonable, while still being stronger than it initially was. I applaud this change a lot, and I wanted it for a long time.
Yeah, I think the mana drain in itself is a bit too strong currently, so I think this is fine. And if they want to target Arcane Tower, I think even the initial change when they went from 12 to 16, would probably be more powerful and more targeted if they reduced building time. Like if that was the thing they were going to change at that point as well. I think it's fine now to nerf like the feedback slightly. If this becomes like an issue, like that now human hero game looks too weak again, then I would rather them look into reducing build time, so it's more odds for getting the Arcane Tower up than trying to reduce. This is like what Remo, which I gave him some points for, is like you kind of don't want to implement too many anti-fun measures in the game. And Arcane Tower is one or the other of the kind of anti-fun measures, right? Your hero standing 4 seconds too long within a certain range, and you can't use any spells anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed. So, Knights and Sundering Blades. I think we can talk about this in one topic. No more lumber mill, but you have to research Sundering Blades, and it costs more lumber. So now, my big question: if you need more lumber, don't you automatically build a lumber mill?
Yeah, I feel like that change from 100 to 175 makes in that sense make no sense. I also don't get why that was needed. I think it's fine that they keep. I was because our suggestions that we sent was included you can maybe just remove Sundering Blades because it's not sure it's needed in the meta anymore. We got some feedback after that, talked to some pro players, and some of them said that it's actually not that bad. It's pretty nice that Knights have some sort of extra thing they get at tier 3, right? Most tier 3 units get you can do an upgrade, something that changes them a bit. And then Knights being this super strong unit against certain things is totally fine. So I don't mind it being an upgrade. I actually think that was a bit convincing of an argument. But I don't get the adding 175 wood. Just sounds like maybe an unnecessary addition to the tech tree. I think that is just the research time matters more than the cost, would be my guess anyways. So and this is a bigger nerf to 1-base play, of course, than 2-base play. So I would just suggest get it back to 100 as it was. I don't think this does much, and it only affects 1-base play, especially maybe human mirror actually.
I was about to say the very same thing. Yeah, maybe it is unnecessary. I would like to keep Human Mirror as vital as it is and as colorful as it is right now, because Human Mirror is, I think, in the best state it has ever been, with different changes in heroes and also the ability to go for tier 3 if you want to, and we don't have the Breaker Mirror all the time, and Knights played a big role in that. We always mention Fiends and Mountain Giants when we talk about Sundering Blades, but it's obviously insane against Breakers as well. So, Lumber Mill to streamline the tech tree, I like that a lot. The lumber increase, not necessary, but if someone is determined on going that route, 75 lumber will not hold you back from going that route.
No, I don't think so either. I agree.
All right.
But yeah, so I don't think. In that sense, also it doesn't accomplish that much. I would guess, right? So I don't know. That's the only thing about that. I would maybe remove the wood cost, but I don't think it's super impactful, anyways. But yeah,
I agree. Tauren, stay at tier 2. Pulverize, or the main pulverize, the strong pulverize, still requires tier 3. Tauren build time 5 seconds more, and a weaker base pulverize on tier 2.
So yeah, it's still interesting to it's impossible to know how much this will affect matchups. I think this is probably the almost obvious scary change in the PTR currently. There's one other that is in here which should be removed, by the way, but we'll take that later, which is super scary. But go back to that. But I think it's good that this is again they want to try this. They want to see if it works or not. But we all agree that as base as it thinks was, it looks a bit too strong. Pulverize, even at base value, was strong. The build time has been reduced to make it more available when you hit tier 3 to get Taurens faster. So it was good that reverted that change, in addition. So I think this is it's getting closer, or it's probably tryable, right? And see how it works. It's also, it kind of re-incentivizes tier 3, even with Taurens now, because the Pulverize upgrade is now a bigger upgrade than it was otherwise.
True.
So,
plus, of course, the upgrades for Orc on tier 3 are still pretty great, with Kodo, which of course goes hand in hand with the damage output of everything else, and Berserkers, which might be more important than before, but we'll get into that in a bit. When we saw the PTR last week, I said, maybe if you make Tauren more accessible, weaken them, and this is exactly what they did. And we also talked about how scary it is that they might creep up a storm because of the base pulverize, and they weakened the base pulverize, and I don't hate that.
No,
they addressed the critique that at least I gave, and they see the warnings that we give, And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't work. I would give it the same treatment as Polymorph, where let's just try, but let's maybe look back at this in a month or so.
Yeah, I think you gotta do like two things. You gotta look how it works, and if this is introduced as is, and don't necessarily overact to the first game. Something wins with this,
Yes.
and then like see how it looks. But I mean, I did look at. We did some like play testing. I watched people play test this in different matchups. I think this is fine. I think it was probably too strong, especially against human with base stats. But I think this is fine to try at least. So, and you also get like another change that kind of works in tandem in the human orc matchup, right? Beneath, so they're going to synergize a bit as well in that regard.
So Troll Headhunter, I mentioned this at the beginning already. It mentions Troll Headhunter. That is the unupgraded Headhunter. Damage reduced from 22 to 21, the base damage that is. So did we check if this is going for Berserkers as well? Is it intentionally only stating this for Headhunters, or do Berserkers get the 1 damage back that the trolls lost? Very hard to make a statement on this for me.
Is the PTR downloadable? Is it just warning that the PTR is going to be this, by the way? It's released, right? So then I can check in the editor.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I'll do that. But I mean, even if it was reintroduced to Berserkers, I don't think that's necessarily bad. So the idea behind this change is to address the fact that Headhunters against humans specifically, or more or less only, can be a bit too cost efficient, basically. There's like, and I think we did one time the last couple patches ago, but tried to change this by reducing the HP, but that made them. The thing is, Headhunters are not strong in HP wise, right? They're pretty weak, easy to kill. So it just made them weaker at the one thing they're weaker at, and made them pretty a lot worse pretty fast. I think targeting damage makes more sense. It also gives more reward to people that control them properly instead of because you can still it's still not a huge reduction in damage output. I think if it is separated between Berserkers and Headhunters, you could actually try be more experimental with it, with having like bigger damage reduction. You can maybe do even 2 damage and to see and then you reintroduce it with Berserkers. That has been suggested before, but I think people gave up because it didn't seem like they knew they could keep the track of those 2 changes in tandem. But you can argue that maybe you can even go you can do other changes as well, right? So the upgrade yields even more different to what benefits you have. But I think this is either way a directionally good change. I think they're still a bit too strong in the early game against human, where it becomes. I mean, if you get punished so hard as human player comparatively to how much you get punished as an orc player. So
yeah, it's also a relatively oppressive and unfun playstyle. If it's really intentional that Berserkers are not losing damage, I like this a lot. If they also reduce Berserker damage, I don't like it. So I already see a couple of posts oh, they forgot Berserkers, or they probably forgot Berserkers. Not necessarily sure. I like that. I give it my blessing.
Yeah, if it's not, I mean, I think it's totally fine that Berserkers don't get the damage reduction you introduced to Headhunters. Yeah, and then I think if that's more open, you could even discuss they don't do 1.5 values, but I would kind of like that. But even because this is a 4% reduction in damage, it's not much. I mean, it does matter, but it's not much. You could even think of maybe do one more, and then that's 8% reduction. Maybe that's too much. I'm not sure. But if it's reintroduced as Berserker, then you kind of still give them the value and benefit of doing them in tier 3. Where also if you want to go to keep Headhunters relevant against undead, I think that matters more. The tier 3 values than the tier 1 values, for instance. So stuff like that I think is good. That they can separate those 2 units a bit more. They're the same unit, but they're different states. Yeah.
Also, you got to keep in mind that still Tauren on tier 2 are a thing. Human gets a bit nerfed in the early game, so they are more harassable against the Farseer, or whatever you want to play. So always put things in perspective, and seeing this and saying, "Oh, we got nerfed 3 times and the others got 2 buffs, and that means we can't compete anymore." It's a bit too simplistic. So,
or Berserkers have 22 base damage.
All right, so it stays that way for them.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope they don't correct it like they corrected the Destroyer Dispel. So please, Blizzard, keep it as it is in the Berserker department. That would be great.
To be fair, the last time that critique got mentioned was the fact that you reduced HP for Headhunters but not Berserkers, right? And that was the point where Headhunter and Tier 3 meta into Berserkers was super oppressive overall in all matchups, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people then wasn't open to the idea or didn't like the idea that Berserkers wasn't reduced in power.
Yeah.
But I think by now that's been figured out as not being too oppressive at that point. So that's fine.
Heal Ward's mana cost reduced by 50. Do you think this will change anything in one-on-one? And does this have... Okay, that's the first question. Do you think this has any implication on one-on-one?
Probably not. We did suggest this, but also because I think, like, why not? It's maybe like everything, of course, helps a tiny bit to make stuff more viable, right? Even the smallest buff in any direction will help in a vacuum. Yeah. That being said, there's several things why this isn't that viable in 1v1. That I don't think this changes. And this is, of course, a challenge. I don't disagree with people. We talked some feedback, and some of the changes the pros are giving feedback on is this doesn't change anything, right? Which I quite often actually agree with. But it's also very hard to do substantial or conceptual changes big enough to matter on a big extent. So this isn't buff, but I don't think it will affect much in 1v1. But those few times where they show up is a small buff, right? Which is probably fine.
This could certainly do something in 4-on-4 and FFA where heal wards oftentimes get spammed because you have them anyway, because the maps are so big and you need sentry wards, so you have the doctors anyway. We'll have to see if that has any implications.
It's important that the FFA and 4v4 players try to give some summarized constructive feedback. It would be nice if one of those more active in those communities actually gave these things are bad for this specific game mode, instead of just writing it in a sentence just by the way this would. Because then it makes it easier for the developers also to okay, this is the impact for the 1v1, this is the impact for the other modes, right? And then try to measure those up against each other.
Mm-hmm. So I have zero faith that this is happening.
What do you mean the peaceful, nice, friendly 4v4 FFA community won't do that?
I can't imagine the FFA community having a talk about it, but not coming to a conclusion. For the 4-on-4 community, I'm not too sure if they know how to open an Excel sheet.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, okay, I'll promise that I'll get some feedback from the FFA boys at least.
Okay,
because I know who they are, but I don't know who the 4v the 4v4 community is a lot more undefined, in a lack of a better term. But yeah, I'll try to see talk to some of those guys as well. I think it would be interesting.
Sweet. Night Elf?
Yeah, we do the Priestess of the Moon change. They did the level 1 change, which I think is really good compared to how it was in the pit. If you actually want to increase the usability of this spell, you need to make it stronger at level 1 as well. Because that's the problem, right? It's level 1, you're trying to do harassing and trying to keep the other heroes from gaining power. That being said, regarding to what you said earlier, I don't think this conceptually changes Podum's usage in any other matchup than Mirror. It's just the way the hero works. It doesn't work well as a first and second hero. I mean, it's still a good orb carrier, but the increasing searing arrows doesn't change the way that change that fact, because you still want to go orb, I think, against humans specifically if you go for that strategy, or against orc in those cases you go tier 3. I do kind of worry though, as we said last PTR, I'm just going to say this again, increasing damage and reducing mana cost and making Starfall better. I don't think Starfall matters in DH versus Podum Mirror, but can be noticed. You have to be careful that Night of Mirror doesn't only become Podum Mirror. Currently, you have DH Bear Play, DH Lore Fast Expo. You have some talent play. I don't say it like it's at the top level as optimal as other stuff, but you do see it from time to time. And you see Potom hunts or Potom lore play, basically. So you do actually have quite a bit of diversity in what you see even at the pro scene in Night of Mirror now. We don't want to go back to it only being Potom Mirror every game. Or we don't want to go back to going be this one strategy every game. Kind of independent of what strategy we're talking about. So that's the only thing I worry about with the damage change and the mana cost change in tandem. So yeah, that's like the only thing I would say keep in mind out. I will this is where, of course, since this will affect Night of Mirror so much, and Nilos should be heard, I think, on this topic specifically.
Maybe okay, I'm spoiler. Okay, maybe since we give mana regeneration back, the mana cost change doesn't matter anymore. So that would make it a bit more useful to play Demon Hunter against it. And the mana should still be there to make Searing Arrows somewhat useful. I agree. We should try to prevent Potom Mass Hunt Mirror at all costs. I'd rather cast 20 Bear Mirrors than 5 Hunt Mirrors.
Yeah, I do think Bear Mirrors also these days tend to be less stalemated than they used to be for quite a while. So yeah, I think like this, you should be careful. I would also say this: if they keep the mana cost as is in the PTR now, the change in mana regen increase for the Moonwells is not comparable to how much less mana you use on Searing Arrows, right? It's so it's still a bigger buff to Potom than it is to the DH counterplay. Then you're gonna look at it that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you could do like, if you're insisting on reducing mana, I would not go from 8 to 5. I think that's a big change, right? It's 40% or something increase, like around.
You're the numbers guy.
I would be like around that level. It's not perfectly 40, it's like 38%. So yeah, I think that's like, start with 7 or 6. It's fine. You're already increasing the damage, and you already see Potom in Mirror. And Blizzard, don't think that we're saying Potom is not that good in the other modes means that you just need to buff these values up until you see them in other game modes or in other matchups, because then you have to buff them to an insane amount, and then it's only Potom Mirror, and Potom will only like the way you play Potom in other matchups will always be troll strats. If you want to do Potom in other matchups, you have to do a grand rework of the whole hero.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's maybe not usable at this point. I think people have gotten accustomed to Potom being a support hero in most matchups.
True. So what do we think of the Potom Starfall change? I didn't do the math really, if this evens out, but at exactly the same damage output. But in general, it follows the direction that ultimates are more explosive. And I think that is the right call, because 45 seconds, when do you ever see a hero standing at the same spot undisabled and unnuked for 45 seconds? That doesn't happen. So the last 15 seconds are nonsense, and then of course the damage is wasted. We love to see ultimates, especially Starfall, because it's the most beautiful spell in the entire game. And I didn't test it yet. I didn't do the math, but I like the direction.
Yeah, I think so too. This is also like a change that actually needs to be getting feedback on from bigger game modes, right? Where your Starfall is seen more often. It's also more impactful in a way. Because you can like stack Starfall on top of 2 other ultimates. You kind of see that a lot in like FFA especially. Yep. So there has to be a search for look for at that. I think for 1v1, I don't think like it's hard to like find the big negative with this change. It just makes the spell have more damage output. I mean, to be fair, at the damage levels as is now, if a human has like 1 heal scroll, it kind of doesn't do anything in the fight even. It's just kind of like that, even if you don't dispel it. Maybe you need 2 heal scrolls, but I mean, it is kind of a meme in everything except maybe Potom Mirror, where both have Starfall and no disable. But I mean, if the one get Starfall before you, maybe the cost you need to pay is to get a keeper, right? Or something that makes disabled Tinker Keeper, whatever, something.
I think these ultimates, and there's plenty of them, volcano, tornado, earthquake, etc. They're used against buildings because buildings can't walk away and buildings can't nuke you. Used most of the time, except towers and ancients, of course. And then it becomes very, very useful in some game modes like FFA. But still, then the point is the same. Like, if it's more explosive, it's better. And then an ultimate feels more powerful instead of tickling you to death, which it shouldn't really do. But yeah, I think we're getting a bit hung up on Starfall. It's a good direction. Somebody can do the math if this is crazy, and then if it is, we dial it back at some point. The next one is a newly introduced one. The Keeper of the Grove Treants being cheaper now. And I wonder if that is the second line in these patch notes that you just want to delete.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I haven't thought that much about it. I do kind of wonder where the where the thought behind this specific change for Keeper is from. Keeper is a bit scary in the fact that he can either. I would say Keeper is currently in a fairly weak state. It's not like you don't see him, but he is a lot less forgiving, and it's not as powerful as he used to be. I think that's pretty clear. We saw that just today with the Moon 40 games. It is harder to do the same damage you were used to be able to. But I'm not sure if the mana cost for the Treants is the main issue. And we did have one patch where Treants were way too powerful for a while, which kind of made it very the games become a bit too what's the word I'm looking for here? You gain an advantage, you gain a bigger advantage. I keep forgetting the English term. But so I'm not sure about this. I mean, is this the best targeted change for Keeper? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. It feels a bit like let's just do one thing random with one spell. I feel like even more obvious would be if you actually want to reintroduce Keeper power level, is to do the 1 second back on the level 2 Entangle. Because I think that kill threshold changed a lot versus Footman and Grunts specifically. I'm not sure if this needs to be even more spammable. I don't think it's that broken though. I didn't read this and think the game is gonna burn in a fire, but
I mean, it does already, but we don't have to pour gasoline on it. I worry about this quite a bit because it's obviously in tandem with the Moonwell regeneration being back up to the levels that it was, and it's also in tandem with Arcane Tower feedback reduced. Flooding expansions with Keeper Treants or bases is not really fun. I can see this being somewhat of an answer to the Undead Dispel item on tier 2, but that doesn't really hit the timing. Because the Keeper is always the scariest early, or the earlier the better, usually. With a lot of mana, and of course a lot of Treants available, that is a given. But later on, this doesn't really do much. And I worry about expandability against a big mana Treant Keeper.
Yeah, for both human and you mean for specifically human, or you think for undead as well? Which matchup you're thinking?
Yeah, for undead as well, because the spam ability could be over at tier 2, but you expand at tier 1, so that's could be a bit of a problem. Could be. I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure either. I'm also interested in. Yeah, I think the way I guess is I don't necessarily see. I haven't heard at all Night of players complain that Treants are not cheap enough, and that's an issue with Keeper. I feel like the main issues has been Keeper is a bit too weak in their late game, and it's become maybe races have become better at getting to the late game, right? So you couldn't get as big as an advantage as strong he was in the early game. So I guess this kind of helps in that regard. But yeah, and the other thing I think, of course, Moonwell changed hurt Keeper as well as any other hero because it's very mana dependent for his spells.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my tendency is also to think like this is not needed. If it's like broken or not, I think it's very hard. Like 15 mana is impactful, but it's also 15. I mean, kind of hard. No, like a big mana keeper will still. Will it then be able to throw maybe one more 3 set down, right? So kind of hard to like know what the value actually will matter in the game.
Yeah, but as always with Night Elf, like if you use less mana, you can heal cheaper.
Yeah.
This always and you have more mana in the Moonwells anyway, so it's always a double whammy of sorts. Not saying that it's going to be particularly broken, and not saying that this must be deleted, but I see a certain risk about this change, and I wonder if it's just a response to the community saying, "Oh, the undead has a dispel item. Keeper is dead." Keeper was kind of dead in that matchup anyway. So yeah,
Cow sometimes it works in Tidehunter specifically.
yeah, on very specific maps there was a way to play it, but in general, we saw it very little.
Yeah.
Interesting change. Yeah, I see it's a bit risky.
This kind of also highlights the what makes it difficult both for us and for Blizzard. And when you have general buffs, Moonwell regenerated tier 1 is a general buff.
Yes.
And then try to measure how then you can you then do like targeted changes toward other stuff, because it makes it difficult, right? Because it kind of amplifies it. You're not doing actually one change for the keeper, you're doing one change plus the other general buff you got in the background. So it becomes like a double buff, even though the Moonwell region doesn't say keeper, right? But that's how it works in practice. So that it does, like, I think for all Night Elf suggestions, kind of clutter the like how you should interpret stuff a bit. So yeah, I also like agree that you should be a bit skeptical about this, and maybe at least be ready. This is also like one of the things. Maybe be ready to hit the hotfix button if you see like 14 keeper all-ins the first like 4 months, basically every game. Or
exactly. Okay, Moonwells. We talked about Moonwells a lot already, but they're back.
There is one thing I like to state though, like, because I was thinking about when I said keeper, within like the other maybe obvious change you could do to reintroduce keeper power level is to increase entangle level 2 a tiny bit again, like the 1 second you lost. That being said though, you can actually micro against treants. You can't micro against entangle before you get the spell. That's why people really didn't like meta when it was like super powerful, right? So
I think people still have PTSD from the Matt Morris keeper entangle days, so that could easily kill some fun. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then the Whirlpool Blades, we don't. I mean, I think Lolight mentioned that specifically that this could be 1 second research time. I will still not get it. But I mean, this is again like the healing ward for 1v1 right change. I don't think this is like, it's a good buff. Why not? It makes something stronger that, like, slightly stronger, that was weak and underutilized. It doesn't change conceptually that it's not usable though. Like, when do you get enough glaives for this to matter?
Yeah.
And even if you, it's just kind of meh either way.
Yeah. Can we talk about Moonwells now?
Sure.
We did, but they're back to former strength. But in the late game at tier 3, they
not exactly back to former strength though. 1.5 was the former, no?
Was it?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I think so.
I forgot about that then. Really?
I mean, it's getting very close. Wasn't it 1.5? Yeah, 1.5, yeah.
True. Okay, so it's not entirely back to former strength.
It is very close though. The values will now be super close when you actually like measure it into like mana and HP region. Yeah.
Okay.
I think these two changes in tandem are pretty okay. There was, I do like it. I am participating in the most vocal Night Elf community, and I know like a lot of the anger against this change because it felt like motivated from one source. I do get that feedback. That being said, I do think you can't underestimate how many people that were actually complaining and have been for a while about the super wells or the tier 3 wellspring moon wells. So, and the feedback we got actually from players that are not Night Elves after like we did our community suggestions were more formalized, was that maybe this is not that bad with the Moonwell regeneration, like back to 135. So I think this might be like a decent compromise. They're pretty close to their normal level. It gives them a buff, like a boost compared to now. Not as big as people think, but a small boost in the early game. Bumps up like the cost benefit and also just the risk ability for Night Elf a tiny bit in the early game. But also reducing the super powerful level of Moonwells in the late game, right? So, and this reduces the mana pool in the super wells, not the regen rate. So they're still very strong because the regen's so fast now. They're almost back to the same level, but they don't have like the same amount of mana. So I think these two together are good. I think Night Elves deserve a tiny general buff at this point, so I think it's fine.
Yes, I agree with everything you said, and I'm very, very happy for the kind souls in the Night Elf community that get a reward. We should split the Night Elf in like dark elves and high elves, so we know what we're talking about. But that's a different topic. Undead, holy moly, that's quite a lot.
A lot of changes.
Lots of changes, yeah. Also, like kind of like surprising ones.
The first one is interesting because in a very early community patch suggestion, before we released anything, we had a line that said Nerubian tower damage type changed from melee to magic.
Yes.
Now
it's normal. Don't get fooled by the Blizzard people. Don't fall for their false description. It's normal damage and not melee damage.
Yeah, that's important because I mean, the idea was from changing from normal to magic, and at the time we didn't include it in the end. We kind of felt maybe it was a bit too clunky, and maybe Blizzard like wasn't open to that. But the idea is the following: is that you have a strategy, not that common anymore. It was pretty common back in the day. There's certain undeads that still do it a lot. I think it would be more common if the best undead player in the world wasn't a bit more like careful in his strategy selection, because he likes to play. I mean, Happy plays pretty similar, specifically in the Night of every game now. I think if he was like more inclined to do a bit more experiments every series, I think he would do this more often, specifically against Warden, especially those times that happen. It's when Europe Tower Rush that used to be super strong. It is still pretty strong, and it's super strong against Warden. I think a lot of people watch Happy play against elves and then say nobody does this anymore. On ladder, if the pros go Warden, they're going to get nerfed Tower Rush by anyone except Happy, basically. It is still very strong as a strategy, and the idea here was to change the damage type from the idea original our suggestion to change from melee to magic was that it makes them weaker against heroes and archers specifically. They're not huge damage dealers, but 1 to 2 nerf towers hitting heroes and the archers over time will do actually quite a bit of damage when it stacks up over time. You reduce it a lot damage against heroes, and you reduce it quite a bit against archers if you do it to magic. This also does that, but the magic change also made it so it made it very strong against water elementals and footmen. That's where it become a bit difficult, because it does actually would do like 20 damage per footman per hit, which is maybe a bit too much. So I think this change is probably they have come to the same conclusion without us actually suggesting it, which I think is very interesting. And then I actually super interesting where they picked this suggestion up from. I like intuitively, I don't hate it. I don't like necessarily see this as like a super bad thing. It makes nerves better against air units. It makes them better against dryads, which might be a source of contention. But it makes them weaker against archers and heroes, which I don't necessarily mind. I think it was conceptually, just to be fair on that, I think it was super weird that a tower had normal damage. Like it hits you with a sword from range. It's very weird that it was normal damage to begin with. I actually have no idea why it was that. I think that maybe was just an oversight of sorts, would be my guess.
Maybe at one point archers were too strong. Or I worry a little bit about like footman defend, but just a tiny little bit, because that seems to be the unit that's not affected by this. By this, if you have defend, the tower does no damage to you, but it did very little damage to you anyway, and you wanted to focus Archmage and Water Elemental. So I feel like
and
that can be ignored.
And that would probably defend push against the under expo would probably only happen like it would only happen against an expo play specifically. I don't see it like happening into main base.
No.
Maybe. And then like at that point the lich would be level 3. I don't see the footman doing that much anyways.
Yeah.
Just in my opinion. So
yeah, that's right. So that was the only worry I had on first view. To be honest, I didn't think about it that much if it breaks anything.
No, I'm fully open of me not thinking of something here that's super bad or something. I mean, the only thing our unit I like see people getting annoyed that it's better against now is Dryads, maybe. But again, at that point, when your Dryads are tier 2, you're getting a bigger army, maybe like, yeah, I'm not sure that damage even matters. I feel like nerfs matter damage-wise only in the early game with few units, right? Few things. This will significantly reduce the damage to a hero. Like, let's say a hero takes 20 hits from Nero Tower or something while trying to cancel it, or trade cancel Expo, a demon, for instance. It will actually reduce the damage taken by like, how much will it be? Like 40, 50 maybe? It's not like it doesn't matter at all. So I think this, and I think like Nero Tower is such a strong tower as the ability is that the damage value can almost be close to 0 without it mattering, to be fair. So
Stefan in chat is saying, wouldn't magic damage make magic immune units unaffected by the cold effect?
That was the other thing we also were like having a problem with, like how do you actually do that? So I think
nice.
Stefan, it was the kind of same thing, right? Like at that point, does the narrow actually even like not slowing a single Dryad or a single Spellbreaker actually matter? It's kind of hard to know, but it is an issue if you do that. I do agree. So yeah.
And now, the big one.
2 big ones or 1 small one, but a directional. I mean, yeah, reducing both attack speed bonus and research time. I think it's like been requested for quite a long time. Frenzy ghouls are super used in every matchup. I think I think it's kind of hard to argue that they're not the best unit in the game at the top level. Maybe not below, right? Because they are pretty difficult to use effectively, but at top level they. Like, I can't imagine a better unit, like in how much it does for how little cost it has. So I think these are like well-deserved changes. I would say again, I just reiterate that the attack speed bonus reduction from 35 to 30 doesn't do much in terms of damage. It's a 0.5 now DPS reduction, and
so
DPS only DPS only matters over time. So I think this is like, to be fair, I'm going to be a bit like. Straightforward here. I think these 2 changes together are very conservative for how big of an issue ghouls have been for a while. Personally, I think I would like maybe in tandem either do one of the changes to a more like keep one of them as is and make the other stronger, like a more even bigger of a nerf, or make one of them very big. Like you have to do like 1 or 2. To make, I think maybe this is even like on the very conservative side, to be fair. But it is a directionally very good change. I think that in that sense, like I applaud them actually being looked at. And of course, maybe we underestimate like how much 15 seconds and 0.5 DPS in tandem will actually matter. I mean, the margins are smaller than people probably think, even at the top level, even with win rates that are like very, very high, right? So yeah, this might be.
Maybe it does help that the scroll of healing is also removed from the shop. So you can't heal that easy anymore. There's less heal scrolls in the game automatically. So you can't heal that effectively against the chain lightning, for example. That might help. With more AoE in the game as well from Torrent, maybe. This might be enough. This might not be enough. I also wouldn't be opposed to say nerf it even more. But this is so many changes for Undead that maybe start this way.
Yeah, sure. And you also, for instance, you buff Moonmouse a bit. It will help, even though maybe not like super a lot, but it will help during the game. Like, so stuff for like pulling in maybe directions altogether that makes it, I think it's fine to start with. Yeah. Thumbs
Curse.
up, I guess.
Yeah, thumbs up for sure. Definitely, like, at the very least, it's a push in the right direction. At the very, very, very least. Curse?
I hope you didn't mean that while targeting the first one. Of these two.
Curse can still target mechanical units, but the duration is.
I'm not just gonna. The duration. It's fine. It's way too long. This is fine. Like half, totally fine. It's still 60, 30 seconds on the hero is insane. Still 60 seconds. That's fine. Like it's a half. You don't need to do 100% in like the first go. They can't affect mechanical units. They just can't. Like.
But why just send a breaker with the tank? What's the problem? Well, then you actually curse the meat wagon, and then you take less damage while doing full damage. It's actually a buff to human.
And as you know, with banshees, undeads always produce only one banshee, so they can only cast curse one time.
Correct.
And they don't have access to mana region through the statues nearby.
Well,
and are now master trained, so they're gonna regen mana pretty fast. No, I mean, this change is completely broken. Like it's insane to even suggest to get curse and mechanical units. I saw a tier list yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, that put banshees at B tier.
Wow,
that's the most insane placement of a unit ever. Banshees are super strong against human. I mean, I get like you don't see banshees as much in other matchups, so that's I think like where they becomes like a very different. But they are with this change, they would counter every single thing human has except breakers. That's the one thing human has that it's not countered by banshees. Then,
so yeah. In general, like the concept of the unit is so funny, right? You mitigate physical damage. You make them immune to magical damage, and if that's not enough already, it's just your unit now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so like as I said, I think most the feedback we got also after the last community, like our community patch, was that you can look at tanks and change them, but you can't do it without completely altering banshees, because the whole synergy of human undead now is if you get enough banshees at the late game with like equal hero levels, you kind of forced into going tanks, or you have to like play around the banshees in a way. You can't like take a straight up fight with like 6 knights, because you're gonna lose at least 3 of them. And even if you don't lose them, people are like, you just staffed them away. Totally fine, but you don't have those 3 knights in the fight anymore. So that's like 40% of your army DPS gone, right? So you can't make banshees stronger without like also. I mean, you can't do this. You can't just one side make tanks super weak and make banshees even stronger. Then you have to do bigger changes. You have to like rechange the whole way banshees work in that matchup. So yeah, that's the long and short of it, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree. That this is crazy. I would love to see a PTR show match of Happy and Fortitude, where 40 plays the 40 way. Let me see how crazy it really is. Like, I just want to see it with my own eyes, because maybe my mind is not able to project it from just seeing these values. I tested it with tanks and Necropolis in an isolated environment, and that was already crazy. With the old curse duration, now being cut in half, and maybe some counterplays. You're interacting with a troll, by the way. I don't know if you know.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually had like ask, are you serious? Then I understood it. Yeah.
I applaud the curse duration. It doesn't matter if it's in tandem with the mechanical unit change or not. This is the right change. It's 2 minutes. It's an absurd value, and the change in the bubble is good. And you old man can still yell at the mechanical targets. I would probably support you in that.
Yeah. I mean, even though people are, and you said like, I don't think you would mass throw this on Charos that much, but it actually affects that like as well. I mean, it's a 33% damage reduction in practical terms. It is a huge debuff. So
and we still think that it's broken, that it's more than 30%. Like, that is probably the most popular conspiracy theory in all of Warcraft, next to Happy knows how to manipulate items.
Yeah, I mean, like people I feel like there's like every 4 months there's like some guys like, I did the test map, it shows that it's completely fine, and then like next guy's like, curse reduces 95% damage. Like, okay, it's kind of hard to actually get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's super good at like so.
Dude.
Yeah, but it is actually interesting that it's like I don't think anyone's like it feels like they're 100% sure they have definite proof of this anyway. So it does exist as like a living conspiracy theory of sorts, and will until like a developer just shows this how it works.
That's right. Cripple can still target mechanical units. I think it is, as a master training, it's fine. Also, it's way less spammable than Curse is. So, in comparison, between Curse and Cripple, Cripple is totally fine against tanks. Curse, it's not because it's that spammable. I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? I don't see like any big problem with Cripple, but just you can't keep it on Curse because Curse is like going Cripple would actually may force the undead to go like a unwanted to a certain extent. Maybe is the way to put it. Tech route to counter something specifically, and it's still like a very high mana cost. You need to be in position. I think this is fine in that sense, at least to try. Yeah. But you can't do it like in the normal tech route of undead. Just say, okay, there's one thing you were struggling a bit with in the late game. Now just don't even worry about it anymore. That's just there's nothing. I have to say, like even human undead is probably more of the even matchups in the game. Like the data is actually not showing like the humans are dominating that much, and so it depends. And it's like everything is about the early game expo canceling or not. It's not I wouldn't say undeads in general. Say, especially at the top level. My issue is when I have 100 food army with banshees in, that I can't fight the human super army, right? So don't make that part of the undead arsenal even stronger. I don't think that's a good idea.
We'll see how it pans out. Wand of Negation changes. There's a negotiation about the Wand of Negation. Down from 3 charges to 2. Less gold, but more gold per charge. I still don't like that there's no cooldown on the item.
Me neither.
I think there should absolutely 100% with whatever values be a cooldown. The direction is probably the right one with the values.
Yeah, I kind of don't like charge items with no cooldown in general. I guess the only exception is the hawk item. Oh my god.
The hawk item? The crystal ball?
Crystal ball.
The hawk item!
It's like the first connotation I got. I think crystal ball is fine for Cursor. You want to like, okay, it wasn't there. I'm gonna scout to 2 other places as well and just spend the whole like gold on it. I think that's okay. It's like a cost benefit reward there. But otherwise, I think all items probably with that several should have a cooldown or at least like some obvious opportunity cost of using it more. This seems like too situationally strong to have no cooldown on, maybe, but only situationally, right? So it's yeah, and also this was a lot of discussion regarding this item if it actually breaks anything or not. It's so costly.
Yeah, right? I said the same, and everybody like did not necessarily agree with me, which is totally fine, but I thought, am I kind of missing a point? Like, it is very expensive. Like, this delays tier 3, this delays orb, this delays upgrades, this delays like literally everything if you really need it. And this opens up a lot of avenues. I said this in my initial reaction to the first PTR. We might have to play around with values, charges, cooldowns, etc., etc., etc. But the direction to open up the undead to move away from the one source of dispel we have is the right one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. You could maybe look at stuff where you separate the debuff part of it with from summons, like if you and then make it cheaper, maybe like you can do stuff like that. The only thing like it's not a worry, I would say, but it's like Nikki needs to keep note of. It's like this is a costly item if you're going one base, and that's a huge decision. It's not a specifically costly item if you have an expo.
True.
And the decision becomes easier, right? So that's the same thing you have an issue with everything you turn it to balance something with human. You kind of have to keep in mind that they most often will have double income. So in this fact, like we don't see a lot of undead expo against elf on the top scene these days. But I'm not saying I wouldn't say like it's never happens. It's just not that often. If that lurk reverts back to the meta more again, and this makes it so it's easier to hold that expo, maybe that's not necessarily positive. Then it's just like a straight buff to Undead Expo against Elf, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure is the wrong word. I don't think is needed. So yeah, so that's like the only thing I was thinking of. But yeah, it's even if it works against summons, right? It's still 150 gold for 400 summon damage.
Yeah. I think
if you actually hit the summons, you kind of have to do that as well. Like
yeah, it's like a priest spell.
Yeah. So
I would say, leaning out of the window here, but if there's a cooldown on top of these changes, the item is fine. I would put it on our list of we have to observe this and maybe change if it turns out it's super OP. But I'm like, at a cooldown and we're fine, Blizzard.
Yeah. Because there's I trying to think of situations where it would be bad. Maybe like it makes the undead going out on the map with level 3 DK, level 1 Lich against Night Elf Keeper. Like make it even harder to not make like the DK Lich just kill 4 archers. But then again, the undead has to be sure that 150 gold is worth more than getting the tier 3 frenzy timing at the same, and which is now also slower.
Yeah.
So going tier 3 later will have even more of an impact on the timing of your push. So yeah, I'm not like I have to. This is like a thing where I feel like also the opinion was most divided. So I think it's interesting. Yeah, but I would say like keep it and try to test it out for now at least. I don't have like any big disagreements with this as is now. I think it was good that it was reduced from 3 to 2, especially if you're not going to have cooldown. So yeah. I would also agree that maybe add cooldown, and then maybe you can even add it, but. Maybe actually having two charges and 150 gold makes it more usable because 200 is so much. It's actually good that it's like not as many usages but more cheaper. So,
what do you think if this is a single target dispel? Because every race has an AoE dispel and a single target dispel, right? Not saying that we need symmetrical game design, but I just thought about it, and I'm not smart enough to come to a conclusion if this would be better.
Yeah, I would. Single target. If they keep damage against summons, it would make it a lot weaker against summons, right? I would guess that's the thing.
But only one summon instead of the entire set of treants, for example.
Yeah, I mean, undeads are not. This was like undeads are not usually have problems with like having 3 units slowed at the same time at tier 2, right? Which then single target would be a lot less impactful. You could maybe try that. I guess it just is like that because the item was like that, like by default.
Yeah, for sure.
With the AoE dispel. And I mean, undeads do have some practice with AoE dispels. That's kind of what they're used to.
That's right.
So,
yeah, okay. Just some food for thought.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but maybe then it actually has to be even cheaper because like it does less than to like more than one summon, right? You have to then you basically always dispel one wolf at the best, right? Stuff like that. So
yeah, but it could be strong against water elementals. It could be strong against the disables like Hex, like Entangle, of course. So just maybe someone can think about it and come up with a solution in the comments. That would be great. We have a lot more to talk about. Meatwagon speed still in. I think nobody really complained about it. So
no, but just if we see a lot of Necro Wagon, just get it back.
Just get it.
Then reduce it to 10 speed. Just don't get Necro Wagons part of the
game. Nova, this sounds like a suggestion that I've heard before. Less slow duration on units from 4-6-8 seconds to 4-5-6 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea to make Nova slightly less oppressive at the higher levels, especially level 3, I would say. I think level 1 is good that they don't change, because then if you mess with that, you get like the whole human versus undead early game. It becomes messy again, I think. I think 8 seconds slow on like a group of units was too strong, just like pure numerical anyway. So I think this is good. Maybe like it makes it slightly more easy for Niles in like the late game to not get like kited to death. Yeah. So I think this is a good thing. I mean, we did suggestions because this like a feedback we gotten from a lot of time that Nova is maybe a bit too strong, like at the level 5 Lich. I like then you have like 3 things you can target with Nova. You can target like damage on the single target. I don't think anyone actually suggested that is like the good change. You can do the AoE damage. You can do, but it's like I actually don't think numerically the damage of Nova is like the most insane thing. It's just the fact that you can spam it so much.
Yeah.
But mana changes doesn't matter that much as long as Dark Ritual is present. So so like this is like one of the obvious things maybe to at least allow a bit more micro against it. Because now it feels like when you're Unsource Nova, you're just okay, I'm just gonna wait. Yeah, basically 7 seconds then before you can move them. Still very strong though. I mean 6 seconds.
For sure.
6 seconds still is super strong. But
yeah. Nobody's arguing that Nova is now unplayable. I like the direction. Very, very, very strong. Maybe a bit too strong, similar to Frenzy. Address it. Nice. Impale. Less mana cost. Back to, or down to 90. I like this. I don't think there's any harm in buffing Impale.
No, I don't think so either. Cryptlord is kind of he is kind of a meme hero these days. Like on top level.
Excuse me, we see it in Mirror.
When did that happen?
1-2-0 plays it all the time, third hero.
Oh. Well, yeah, he went, and also didn't he went like one game Mirror and Cryptlord first on Echo Isles or something? Against
against 40.
Yeah,
and he won.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think this buff will make Cryptlord back to Cryptlord patch. I think is fine.
No, it's a fun spell. It's a cool hero from a design perspective. He has super low mana in general, being a strength hero with the stat scaling he got. Help a little bit with Impale. It's fine. It doesn't do a lot of damage. It's gonna be fine, and it's cool, and I like it.
Also, to give some criticism to our own suggestions, which I think is fine. It's good to be self-criticizing and be a bit open to criticism. Like those like scaling stat changes for heroes that kind of does the same thing in a way. Like it gives more intelligence and then more mana. They're a lot less understandable, I think. And this is like a lot more easier to grasp. The spell costs this, now it costs this. That makes that spell easier to use more often. It's more...
Warcraft community dumb. Have to speak simple terms.
No, but I think it's like it's like I mean it is a bit more keep it simple, stupid, right? Because it's easier to mess up those like scale changes as well. Because we saw that with Archmage last time. They did the second part of the change, so now I just have one more strength for some reason.
Yep.
Without anything else.
Yep. Death and Decay, mana cost address down to 200. 250. I don't know if mana is ever an issue for a Lich due to Dark Ritual. Is this streamlining ultimates to a max of 200?
Yeah, maybe it's like that was one of the reasons suggested. I mean, of course, like everything else, it is a buff. It will make it slightly more accessible, make it slightly better. But again, this is not conceptual enough for me to make like Death and Decay a bigger part of the game, where it wasn't like those times you're going to use it just for either trolling or base trading. Maybe it's like the only thing you kind of wanted to use it for. It's not going to change that meaningfully. So, well, I mean, this is like one of those why not? There's no reason to like be super. Oh no, this is horrible. Don't do it. And it's like why not? But it doesn't do that much. Like it's not a impactful change.
Right on. Ghouls might get nerfed, but the Fiend Whip upgrade is getting buffed as it's cheaper now. It's always been strong against air when you need it. I really like that they didn't address the upgrade time because it's already relatively fast. At least, I don't know the value, but it feels like that. If you scout well, you will have this upgrade when you need it, is my perspective on the duration time. So don't speed it up, because then it's like an emergency button, really, and it could finish in a stretched out fight. But make it a little cheaper. It's okay. Helps. I think this will help.
Yeah, and I like then it feels like a lot of the community, not everyone, especially probably not 100 players, are kind of like thinking that maybe it's if we're going to talk about races being a bit different and stuff, the tier 3 like one base style of undead like playing is kind of like the quote unquote like typical undead way, right? And this helps that playstyle without actually like affecting. This is more of a buff to that playstyle, like because those you see even like Happy has a few games now where he just can't afford web even when the area units pop out because he pulled like he keeps like everything is like so sharp to get those like values. You don't have that 50 extra lumber for web basically. And I think this is like a buff to like the more one base oriented way to play of playing undead. A slight buff. You get pretty big nerfs in other important areas in that sense. I think this is fine. It's also probably not, but it kind of makes like a tiny bit where feels a bit better against like switching to fiends against anti-air, against wibs and griffin stuff like that. I think it's fine. Yeah.
And just for the record, that one base style is the gentleman way of playing undead.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the beautiful way of playing.
That's the most aesthetic way. That is the way undead is meant to be played. Screw you, Baron, for the cool pull. Boneyard and Freezing Breath. Boneyard gets reduced in gold by 25, and Freezing Breath, of course, by 50 lumber. 2 pushes towards worms, but they're both minimal. I got a feeling that they are afraid of buffing worms too much.
I think worms are... So there's a lot of stuff not used that much in Warcraft, which are not by themselves weak. And the few times they show up, they are not bad. Like, and I think worms is one of these cases. Worms stat-wise, it's not a bad unit. They're super good when you have like that Garg, one worm to just... The worm basically functions like a super strong Naga Sea Witch.
Yep, the FFA composition. Basically.
Yeah. And even like I would say like even up to recent, he's not that active anymore. But Ito just basically did this every game, more or less, right?
Against freaking Orc, dude. Against headhunters. Yeah.
48 PM. Frostburn.
That's all you need, dude.
And so I mean, I actually kind of agree that they don't need to like be that aggressive about making Frostburns better. They're trying to make them more accessible, which I think directionally in that sense is more the correct way to go about making them, like, if you want to see them used more. I still don't think like these changes, again, like we're talking about, like it doesn't conceptually change anything. They're still not optimal in like the normal tech routes and stuff. It may be like the few cases you want to switch to them or add them in later. It helps a tiny bit. Another one of these like why not changes. I don't think it like matters much, but I don't see like the big harm either. I mean, freezing breath costing 275 lumber is a bit of a meme, though. So I think that could be even cheaper, probably.
Just keep your ghouls at home, and then you got the lumber.
True. Fine. Never use ghouls. There was like actually one community like Infamous suggestions that said revert Frostburns back to the slow they used to have on heroes. You know what that value was, Neo?
10 seconds, man.
10 seconds. Yep. Oh my god.
Yep. I mean,
yeah, we discarded that specific suggestion. I could just say it. But,
Ido DM'd me how much it cost to make Worms tier 2. So we might have to discuss something off stream later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Good. All right. So, man, lots of undead changes. Maybe we talk about the implications on matchups later and just finish this first thing. Firelord Volcano is still weaker against buildings, which I really like. Soulburn. They actually address freaking Soulburn. I can't believe that I see this. Damage reduction. Like Soulburn, to people who have not seen this, Soulburn is the Kinder Surprise of a Warcraft spell. It does 3 things, but nothing's really great. It's damage over time, which is minimal. It is damage mitigation on the target, and it is a mini silence. So they address now the damage reduction from 50% on to 75%. And the duration of that as well by 1 second each level to give, because we see, if you lean that way, by the way, you're out of the frame.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking.
There you go. People so we saw more we see lava spawn players. This is like the essence of a Firelord. We also saw quite some Incinerate, as that it's just an easier spell to use because it uses less mana. Soulburn was very rarely played, and I always thought, like, isn't that skill already usable as a mini disable? Now Blizzard gives it some love. 75% is a lot.
Yeah, so this is like interesting, right? Because as like we talked a bit about like other stuff as well. Like some things are doesn't just like just doesn't fit in the way you have to play to make it like good. So you have to buff them to insane values if you actually want to make them good. But then the values are like by themselves so insane.
Yeah.
Like these values for Soulburn now are just completely bonkers. But that being said, I'm still not sure you would play Soulburn. That's the weird thing, right?
I mean, why? Like, okay, let's twist it a little bit. Let's say you're a night elf. I know it's not what you want to be. Let's just cosplay as a night elf today. You play up against undead. You start obviously with lava spawn and incinerate, and then at some point you dealt with the ghouls because a miracle happened, and you get an orb. So what use does incinerate have? 0. Switch to Soulburn, and then you can either put it on a Lich for crazy damage mitigation, which is always great, or you use it as a silence on a DK when he's supposed to coil something. I think Soulburn is underrated. Obviously, it can be dispelled, but it can still be good.
Yeah, I mean, these values makes it so it basically works as like, well, you can use items and stuff, so, but it makes it so strong that it almost works like a mini hex.
Yeah, kind of.
So, I mean, I agree. Like, even reducing the damage for 2 seconds, let's say you use 2 seconds to dispel, right? 4 seconds to dispel, like, whatever value the player opposition has to do.
Yeah.
And that's like 75% damage reduction for those seconds. If that's a Lich with an orb, that's like a lot of damage reduced.
Yep.
Right? So yeah, and I think like into utilities mostly will affect. It can affect a lot of matchups actually, but I feel like of course it matters most against those heroes with a high like DPS damage output over time. So
well,
but yeah,
obviously.
I'm like yeah, I'm just like thinking of like what matchups that would mean, but I'm not sure like I dislike this. I'm not even also not sure it's actually necessary. Maybe
yeah,
like
but you know, hear me out. I'm the prophet. Everybody knows. Everybody calls me that. This is one of these changes that makes people realize that the spell is actually useful.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nice.
But it doesn't solve the weaknesses with Firelord in general.
True.
Or you kind of won't skill it until you get to like a certain hero level probably anyways.
Very true.
Not like your primary spell. And the final thing is, I think the least impactful change is the hero duration increase.
Yes. It's either dispelled or it's not.
Yeah, like if you don't dispel, I mean, if you, even at level 3, if you had level 3 Soulburn, if your hero is going to get like basically disabled for 9 seconds at a time, you need to TP or you need to GG out probably, right, at that point. Like, because then the heroes will be so strong that having a disable on a hero for that long would probably just be game deciding. So, so yeah, I mean, in a way, I'm not sure, like, I don't know if this will actually be like that impactful in practical terms. I'm also not sure it needs that increase. I'm not sure like it actually targets the main if there's a weakness with the spell. But it might work as like I think like Wolf Frenzy worked and other stuff. Is that it will make it so people try it more and then maybe they see it was good enough to begin with.
Yeah.
That's maybe not negative. I'm not sure actually.
Chat is saying, isn't that just another anti-fun spell being buffed? Wave 78. I played a game today with Firelord and Cripple together. So I had Soulburn and Cripple on the same unit. It was a Pit Lord level 2 with minus 42 damage. Can you imagine how much fun I had playing Soulburn? It's a very fun spell in the right hands.
Yeah.
We also have Tornado, like, still in. I think this does no harm. Everybody agreed. Keep it in.
Anti-fun is, I would say, like more the places where you don't have good counterplay. I would say you have pretty obvious counterplay against Soulburn. If Firelord by itself is a weak hero, he can be targeted. He can be dispelled, the Soulburn, stuff like that. So,
but maybe you can't target him when you have 75 damage mitigation.
No, you hopefully have an army and 2 other heroes, or at least one. I hope
should be good. Your Ankh suggestion goes through from 7 seconds to 5.
I think this is good. I think this makes Ankh more in line with the rest of the items in that drop pool and table. You don't have to wait. 7 seconds was a long time. Like, it didn't happen that often, but it was like not that rare that it basically TP went out without the hero being reintroduced. Still weaker than the ultimate. It's also usually will often be placed on a weaker hero by default. But like just the fact that your Ankh is usually gone by the time heroes hit level 6 anyways. I think this is totally fine. They're good. I mean, was our suggestion, so yay.
Yay! We will take a look at the docs to see how many of your changes are being implemented. Oh, something's missing here. Stefan, you're a freaking saint. Because another suggestion from your doc is missing from the master's patch log, and that is Naga Mana Shield activation cost down from 25 to 10.
Yeah, that was in the old PTR, right?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't? Okay.
It's in this one now. It was your suggestion.
Oh yeah, it's not in the master document with all the changes on the old and new ones.
That's
why I
said.
didn't see it. Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah. Another one of those, like, why not? But like, it doesn't super impact, but it's kind of weird that a mana dependent hero has like a spell basically that says use mana for damage healing and just make it very costly to activate.
Yeah,
it's been a trend in general, like that several spells have seen activation cost reduced to make it a bit more interactive and fun to play with, and less punishable by having the wrong timing.
I really like this because it can be used as a 4th spell now if you go Frost Arrow, Fork Lightning, but then you have an Orb of Venom or whatever other orb, and then using Mana Shield as a 4th spell. Yeah, why not? Make her a bit more tanky. She's fishy and she's squishy, so help her a bit with that, and I like that. It's a very good change.
Yeah, it also, you can kind of like it. I think it makes cool interactions that you can like trick players by actually like, oh, you're targeting my Naga. I'm gonna make her a lot more tanky than you think she was, right? Stuff like that. I think it's interesting interactions.
Something that I don't know if I like it. I'm pretty sure I don't. Gloves of Haste attack speed increased from 15% to 20%. What's your first impression? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's how I feel as well.
The problem is that it doesn't help much in the early game. Probably, yes. I mean, not that much at least. I think I have to calculate the values, but you think I'm struggling to where this will be better than a damage output item. So it's still weaker than the class of attack. I think in most cases I have to actually do the math, but I'm pretty confident. It's probably in the early game for most heroes, especially melee heroes, a lot weaker than rings are. Rings are too strong still, by the way. But this is buff to the item will make it super strong in the late game, especially for the guy that costs a lot of ice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not weak to begin with.
I agree. So just to demonstrate that, I'll use paint because people like when streamers use paint and it's easier for them to follow. As we mentioned before, make it simpler. So clause of attack. Okay, let's make it. Wait, we gotta do it. There we go. So this is impact over time. This is time.
Didn't know you were an artist, Neil.
I know, right? It's a bit abstract, but okay. So clause, let's make clause red. So very impactful at the start, and then it slowly becomes a little bit weaker as damage values grow, obviously, and armor values grow as well. Ring, I think it's not that great, but then gets steadily stronger at a certain point. And then here's gloves, who have very little impact in the beginning, and then go like boom.
Yep.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, and the higher you make the value, the more the scale, right? So.
Yep.
And it also like affects even like, okay, this would also be a huge buff, of course, to demons, stuff like that in the late game. But it also this will even more be the buff for the range heroes that are kind of hard to keep, like, do anything counter-wise. For demon, you can cast slow, you can keep the Naga focused on it if you have a Naga.
Yeah.
So, like, you kind of mitigate a bit of the DPS output from the pure attack damage. But the Lich, the Sea Witch, stuff like that, can't be touched usually. So it's a huge buff to their damage output.
And I think the issue of these items from that very drop table, it's not here. Because here, you have a lot of other items that are very strong, obviously, as you creep further, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. The big issue of this drop table is here. And this is where you have to address it. And this is why claws should not be +5, but +4, as I always said, and it's still the right thing. Rings, in my opinion, is fine. And gloves, you can argue that they're in the right spot. Maybe there should be like 17.5, but it really doesn't make a difference. You just have to broaden the drop table somehow to make these drops fairer. That's the only way of balancing these drops tables, plus the claws +4.
Yeah. Also, like I saw someone in chat say, like, it makes you more excited to get the Gloves of Haste, but to be fair, it kind of doesn't in the early game. I don't think it matters much there. And at least from when I play, so I'm just speaking for myself here, if I have like a Naga, as a human player, if I have a Naga specifically, especially Naga second, and I don't have Gloves of Haste, it sucks. That item is so strong on the Naga, like after the early game.
Yeah.
Because when it becomes like a machine gun in the late game or like early mid to late game, it's so strong, that item. So I do get like why people don't like it in the early game, because so much of the game is decided early. But I'm pretty sure, like, if Happy has a Lich that doesn't have Gloves of Haste and there's a gloves in the marketplace, he's going to buy those gloves. At that point,
1,000%.
And if this valuables, he would buy probably 2.
I guess.
So, yeah. I think this is not like the right directional change. It just makes it even stronger in the late game, and it's a good, like, it's actually one of the good late game. It's one of the early items that actually goes good into the late game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think in general, now thinking about it, maybe attack speed isn't a value that you should be able to find early game.
Say that again. My mind melted. Say it one more time. Sorry.
Attack speed.
Yeah.
Isn't a value that you should find on an early game item.
No, I do get your point, right? Because it's so little impact in the early game, but it has like a bigger impact late. Though, will people be happy by finding like a Gloves of Haste at a higher tier camp, though?
Absolutely not, but you can combine it with something else.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, you can have like that basically drops 2 items or something like at camps and stuff later.
Yeah.
You can introduce stuff like that. Yeah.
Just to address it real quick, creeps. Well, this was a big wish list from the map makers community. The wish list is big, and this is not everything, but it's a start. And I guess everybody really appreciates that, because it's not a crazy priority that the community will appreciate on first view, but it makes it so map makers can create more colorful creep sets, which gives us more variety, and variety is always good. So yeah, I'm all for these creep changes.
Yep, I agree. Good.
This guy SaveOrcas is asking if he can join us for a couple of words.
Yeah, sure. I don't care. I don't mind. Let's go.
SaveOrcas. If you're ready, you can just call me or Dondo, I think. And then we're going to open up the discussion, of course, to the community, because you have obviously a lot to say as well. Wait, can
Probably should do like a few words after as well, like on what we still are like. Is there like any big things missing? And what should the way be going forward would be one of the things I probably should mention.
Okay, then if you want to conclude your thoughts, then let's do it now, and then
I'll do my like general thoughts like going forward. I think this is like my interpretation. I think this PTR is more than interesting enough that you could work going further on these ideas and tweak them, like to get like the perfect thing that is already there. And if we are to introduce more changes, more stuff, it should be very highly prioritized and very specific on certain things. because like this list is already that long. I don't think you want to introduce like 25 more small and big and small changes all like combined in a big hoop.
Yeah.
There's room for more changes for sure. Like still think there's certain things that should be addressed, and for instance, I also think there's certain things that should be removed, like the curse on mechanical's been pretty strong, worried about. But I think like if you can say like the job of the community going forward is to try to use this as like a base template. And then, like, if you have other ideas, try to be very specific on like these things, and like you should address very specific things and to a very like good extent, basically. Mm-hmm. So to make it easier for the dev team, because like if you get like 40 new ideas, it's going to be impossible to keep track of like how everything fits together, right? So
yeah. Just before we get SaveOrcas on, this was the document of SaveOrcas and Dondo. And let's take a look at what was implemented. Ark of Reincarnation, 1. Firelord wasn't
this was
your idea,
PTR,
right?
though, so that was PTR change, so that's fine. That was both these first two are like the Firelord Volcano and Naga Sewage Tornado was in the PTR. We just
okay. But Naga Mana Shield, that's 2. Yeah. Then we go to human, that's the Arcane Tower, make it 3. Sundering Blades, you said remove, that wasn't there, but the Lumber Mill, that's 4.
4. This master thing, I'm very happy they didn't include. Actually, we can talk about it later, but it's more complicated than first originally thought.
Okay. Okay.
Polymorph reducing duration on heroes, I think, was also gone with, which I think is good that they didn't keep it at 3 seconds because that sounds too long. It's basically the same.
Oh, okay. X. Okay. 5. Headhunter damage 6. Heal ward 7. Where we at?
Autumn,
Searing arrow 8.
Increasing level 1. Yeah.
Was Starfall in, or is that PTR changes?
That's our suggestions.
That are your suggestions. So, I lost track. Where are we? 9.
10. We include both of them, but
okay,
9.
10. Then Moonwells is 11 and 12. Nova duration is 13. Death and Decay 14. Frenzy timing 60 seconds 15. Web 16.
Boneyard cost maybe was hard.
17. Yeah, 17. Heal scroll no longer in the tome. Was that PTR or was it yours?
PTR, yeah.
PTR, okay.
So we would include it ourselves, but yeah, PTR did it first.
I said it many times, so let's just count it. It's 18. Changes to Wand of Negation. I count that as well. It's 19. It's 19 changes from your dog.
Yeah. Let the community decide if that's a good thing.
I mean, if this next patch sucks, this guy is to blame.
You will find me in Dortmund for 4 days, and then.
Oh my god! Don't announce it, dude.
If you really don't like it, then I'll just retire permanently after.
Maybe you created the best balance possible, but before you lynch these guys, they obviously looked at it from if you include all stuff and there's a synergy between this change and that change, etc., etc. So if you come with the pitchforks, still go to Blizzard for not implementing all of it. But it's time to switch the group to get both of the creators of this beautiful doc on.
Time to...
I hear myself. Ah!
Oh, yeah.
There we go. I still hear myself a little bit.
Hello?
There you go. You're very quiet, and we hear ourselves through you. I think you have to wear headphones, otherwise we hear us from you.
You still hear yourself?
Ah! No! Perfect.
Okay, great. Hi guys, glad to see you. Happy day for us. We got second patch, PTR patch, right? What to say? Very impressed. I haven't heard what you guys said at the beginning of the stream. I really think it's a really great patch we have, right? We still can polish a few bits, but overall it's great. In terms of what we've been offered.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the stream that last time we got a second version of a PTR, I was very relieved that the super bad stuff is gone. But this time I actually feel some hype.
Yes. So again, many thanks from map making community. Neo, you can even read that there is a lot of hype there. People are saying, "Oh, actually, somebody listened, and we have these a few changes. It's cool now." Somebody excited to use the rune of speed and so on and so on. So lots of thanks. But regarding balance, well, Dondo and you discussed a lot. I can just say a few words that worry me a bit. Well, most of the things are great, but what worries me, gloves of haste. Neo, I think you are responsible for this change because you said you think gloves of haste are weak and they got buffed.
I know, but that wasn't my intention. It's not the right way.
So, Dondolare, if to summarize, what would be our suggestion for the level 2 permanence? What would you think is a good one?
And we already did it in community notes. We kind of feel like we feel like the rings are a bit too strong in the early game, right? Or they're a bit too good for how their item drop level is. Though to be fair, I know you don't necessarily agree on this, Neo. So that's like been our thing. I don't think gloves need like a buff throughout. We already spoke about this, so guess that was like our main suggestion. You can fill out more SaveOrcas. Items is kind of your jam more than mine, to be fair.
Well, I'd say maybe if it's okay, no buff to gloves of haste. We keep them as they are because in the long run, if you keep them, you get lots of benefits, right? We tested, and ring +4 is around like talisman of evasion. If you look at the stats, you try it, and even Infi put ring +4 into tier S item list. So, and not us, lots of players, one of the first feedbacks, ring +4 to ring +3. I'm not lying, Dondo, you can confirm. I mean, lots of players.
He's not lying, I can confirm.
If you do
Yes.
that, though, you have to nerf claws of attack back to 4. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
Well, I'm not against that. You can have claws +4, claws +8, claws +12, and +16 if you want, if you like numbers. That artifact you can make +16, yeah. So claws +4 or +5, gloves of haste as they are, and ring +3. That's what I guess the sentiment right now is. It is.
I wouldn't
So
hate that.
And of course, you can always look at more items, like adding more items to drop. So it's always a possibility, right?
Yeah.
If they're open to it.
Regarding neutral, I think everything is great. We got Firelord, Soulborn, Naga Sea Witch ideas. Perfect. Undead, I don't know. Lots of people don't think Nerubian Tower has to be touched. I think it's okay as it is right now. Maybe no need to touch it. Some people even want to revert the nerfs. Some players. That's what I hear. What else? Curse and Cripple. They can stay, but we tell upfront that human will not use tanks anymore against undead, and tanks is the only counter against benches, is what the only thing they can play. Yeah, you guys said already, Wand of Negation needs a little bit of what
Cooldown.
cooldown. Definitely. And something regarding death and decay. Last stream, Neo, somebody said in chat that it's 3%. It's actually 4%. So
True.
30 seconds is more than enough to destroy any building. 4% times 30 seconds, 120% damage. So that comment pretty much destroyed our second suggestion, reduce the duration from 35 to 30. Because
True.
30 seconds is enough to to death and decay anything you want. And then all channeling ultimates will be 30 seconds, so kind of good parallel among
That's a
all
good
of them.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. What else? I think human changes are very cool, and looking forward to try polymorph. One feedback we got from players that polymorph right now will be able to cancel any ultimate that channels. That's quite strong, right? But
Yeah.
on the other hand, you can do it with a snare. You can do it with what?
Cyclone.
Cyclone, yeah. So pretty fair. 200 mana. Orc changes. Well, I guess we are going to see torrents on tier 2. Don't know what to say. Night elves. Don't think we need a change with the keeper, as you said, Neo. I think night elves are fine without the change. Moonwell gets reverted. That's a little bit unnecessary. Sorry, it's my own personal opinion. And the Priestess of the Moon, a little bit too much buff in terms of mana, maybe 8 to 6 is fine. And damage on the level 3, 12, 24, 36. 36 sounds good. I mean, 48 damage is so much. Even though people will still pick third hour, I think 36 is fair. Yeah, and that's pretty much everything I'd say. Very happy for this patch. Looking forward to playing it.
I agree. And I think this is now the second iteration, so we're probably done with implementing new stuff and doing crazy changes. The third iteration is usually about either deleting lines or changing values.
Yeah. I would think like that's why I also say that I think there's room maybe for like a couple more things if the sentiment is strong and it's like it seems like a good change overall, but I don't think there's much use case in like trying to suggest 40 new changes, right? I don't think it will be implemented anyways.
Yeah.
There are a few things I think that I would personally say that should be targeted that has not been targeted yet, but we can get back to that maybe. We'll see also with the feedback from people.
Yeah, Chad. SaveOrcas, thank you very much for your comments. Of course, very, very great work on the document, and your feedback is always most valuable.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure, dude. Take care. Switching back to the Dondo call. The little back and forth. Chad, unload your rage on us. Do you hate the changes? Are you mad at Dondolare and SaveOrcas? Do you love it? Are you as hyped as I am? How do you feel?
I actually like there was one comment I actually wanna. I mean, I don't think I'm not sure if I pick out chat comments that like are that meaningful or not. But I'm just one thing I was thinking that one guy wrote is that even with curse, tanks can do a lot, forcing Banshee taking food, doing chip damage. I think the general point is that it's not like undeads are forced into Banshees by going tanks. It now removes the one drawback by going Banshees that tanks gave them. Right, so it's the opposite direction. That's why also like I don't think it's good because Banshees are super strong counter against Knights or cannot let these be if a position goes through. Curse is a huge damage reducer. And Anti-Magic Shell is just a super strong spell overall, right? Then now the only thing you kind of like did to enforce Banshees to not be good is that you went to full tank mode. Harder for the undead to be on the map. They had to stay at home. Banshees didn't do much against them, so now you could reintroduce Knights. Like you can slowly introduce a couple of Knights, do damage, stuff like that. If you make Banshees also good against tanks, they're not like, oh, now I have to go Banshees. Oh no, they're more like, oh, I already have the counter built in. That's nice, right? So that's the whole idea why that should not be introduced to Banshees, basically.
Even 1-0 build a Banshee this week. Can you? And this is pre buffs. Crazy.
There was a disturbance in the force. I felt it.
This is like it definitely can't be drugs in China, so it has to be something else. So in general, the people seem pretty. What?
I just laughed at the joke.
Okay. I'm a funny guy. I know that. in general, the people seem very positive. So, amazing job, Orcas and Dondo. Clap, clap, clap. Well done. So cool to see another patch. Go team. Interesting feedback. Good job. Carifian, I don't know. He likes gloves. This is weird. Only change I don't like is Force of Nature, but overall I'm hyped. Bravo. Good job. Moonwell buff too strong, probably. I'm always mad at everything, so no need to ask.
I think that's a fair and honest opinion.
Yep.
I think that rings true. Actually, you can I'm going to do like see what the Moonwell change will actually. I mean,
yeah.
To be fair, the Moonwell change is smaller than people think. I'm just going to say it like as in like how much HP and mana you get. It's not as big as people.
You have to keep in mind how the Night Elves feel, though. They're
Yeah,
not really known for their brain.
I'm not saying it's like it's too small of a change. I'm just saying like people like in both ways, right? It wasn't as big of a nerf as people might have thought, but I also think this is a good revert to. But like it's not as big of a buff as people then think the other way around.
Curious about the numbers. The Delius says, a very good player from the Netherlands. I think most changes are really good, and even some may not be as good. Most changes are light enough to help us see where the exact state of something should be after more fine-tuning. Yes, I would love that. Angry Korea Man with a wonderful comment. I feel like removing the lumber mill is requiring humans to purchase a shredder more than ever. Does he think that the lumber mill in general was released from the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get like why how the certain. I kind of get his point, but that's kind of like AKM. I kind of get this point. I also don't get his point.
It's a classic AKM. So good to include that.
It's an AKMism, basically.
Very glad that you're trying to make the game experience better. The changes look really great. Really happy to see Blizzard listen. Yeah, that's the thing for me as well. Like they had very little time to go through our videos and the patch doc, and they included a lot of good stuff in very little time. I made sure that they see the doc. I made triple sure. I used all my channels, like the not YouTube and Twitch, but you know the channels behind the public channels. And very, very, very happy. Changey says, gloves plus 20% attack speed. Imagine 2 gloves early game is too good on DPS heroes like Blade Master, Demon Hunter. Meanwhile, gloves 50% is bad. Gloves 70% would be perfect. Yeah, I think the percentage is just my issue. Like, definitely some issues there.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like Easter. Like what if I was like forced, right, to say like what's the 3 things I still think they could. Okay, I guess like maybe first is like the things I really am skeptical about. It's like there's 3 things I would like to really say or like think that they maybe should think about. I think we talked about them already. We just be like clear on it. Force of Nature, probably very scary. So that needs to be checked properly to see how that works. Curse we've been through like 10 different times now, so I don't think that's super important to reiterate, but I think that needs to be looked at. Is there anyone else? Like, is there only those 2 things that I'm like a bit scared of?
Polymorph, Treant's Tauren is.
Yeah, I mean, those we need to watch, but I'm not like as scared in a way, right?
Okay.
I feel like I'm more positive that this can like be checked and let's. Of course, if it's broken, you need to target it, but I'm not like as scared that it might be broken.
Yeah.
I am more scared of the Force of Nature, maybe not, but I'm a bit worried, and I feel like the cripple is just super bad. So
the cripple is super bad.
No, I mean the introducing that change. Not the cripple, I mean curse. Sorry, curse would be super bad.
I'm of course a big Gloves of Haste hater. So that would be my worry point.
Yeah.
So more community feedback real quick. Mass happy nerf, kinda. These patch notes in general are great. Tauren way too strong tier 2. I don't know. We'll see about that, I guess. Very excited to see Tauren. Yeah, I think orcs can be very excited about the Tauren. That's gonna be a whole different mid game.
And also, if it shows up that doesn't help much with torrents either, then at least it gives us like some. I think it's a better starting point to check that than to like don't think of it being a potential problem and then just see if it goes completely bonkers.
Right.
That's like first step. So yeah.
I do think yeah.
You first, sorry.
I was just reading comments. We can do that later.
So is there any like what things are you is there like if there's 1, 2, 3 things you're really missing, Neo, what would that be?
I'm really missing. That's a good question. I got my Arcane Tower nerf, which makes me really happy. I got my Scroll of Healing removal, which makes me really happy. Is there anything I don't think I need something that stabs me in the eye and says, hello, do something with me. There's of course stuff that is less played, but very little is completely not usable. I wonder if people realize the strength of a shade and if that needs to be addressed, but on the other side, you have so many counterplays that it doesn't really matter.
There's people that suggested that maybe like Shade should have some sort of visibility that it's being moving on the map, right? So you have a bit more. It's kind of like Protoss in StarCraft 2, where you see like the small trace of the observer, so you have a bit more sense of whether it's following you or not.
Do you really think they would be able to implement that?
I think no. That's difficult, right? So I think that's difficult to.
So, okay, since you asked me that way, let's move away from balance and move away from game design and move away from all that competitive stuff. The game's still broken. Like, the game is essentially broken to the core since the Reforged launched. And obviously, I want that changed. The ladder is broken. The game itself is broken. The sound is broken. They can't count wins and they can't count losses, etc., etc. LAN has a built-in ADMS thing, which is very low on the priority list for most people, but me running a LAN, it's kind of big thing. I can't select where the sound should be coming out of, so there's no output selection. It's just not in the game. Stuff like this, like, it's not optimized at all. It eats so much resource, it eats so much space. All that stuff should actually be higher on the list of priorities, but I understand that this needs engineering work, and balance stuff is changed in an Excel file. If I had one wish, it is resume from replay, which would save so many situations. Resume from replay, not only reconnect, because that has ruined games on NetEase. Resume from replay would be a sick feature. And hotkeys. Hotkeys in the game. Please. Give me hotkeys.
Instead of third party or having go through champions.
Yeah, that wish list is so long. So if you ask me anything about balance and stuff, I'm super fine. If you ask me Warcraft 3 related, like everything.
Yeah, sounds fair. I can do mine maybe.
Sure.
I have like 1 or 2 things. That's about it. I still think it would be nice to try to target or do like a slight-ish rework toward Banshees to not make it so Undead Mirror is only Destroyer mass.
Yes, that is very true.
And I think, like, if you do those changes, either those we suggested or try to target it some other ways by making like the possession maybe slightly weaker, making it undispellable but slightly lower AMS, stuff like that. So you make it possible to use AMS in Under Mirror, opens up strategic variety quite a lot there. And also at that point, maybe you can start looking more at tanks, probably, right? So and that will also maybe open, like, maybe you can find some middle ground where you can go tanks, but you can also go like a straight up army against banshees, but also like I mean, so you kind of have like a bit more of a choice between those like extreme dualities, right? But that would be like my main thing is I think the banshees being dispellable. The intent was to make a spell that you felt they had counterplay to have a counterplay, but in practical terms, none of the races that have access to the spell and see banshees sometimes actually now can dispel that AMS anyways.
Yeah.
Because I mean, humans don't go priest; they get sniped easily. You still need 2 full dispels before you're close to 0 with it. And even dryads are actually. I kind of agree with this. I played some Night Elf against Undead when I played random with this, and like it's super hard to actually get that abolish to work. Like you have to manually click, and since you click once, it doesn't remove it completely. You have to click like it just becomes like a lot of work to just remove a spell that's instantly recast more or less. So I feel like that banshees could use a better rework, and I think that would open more future possibility as well of like getting the human undead matchup maybe a bit more interesting, and also then maybe reduce the dependency on tanks, which the sentiment I feel is that people don't like it that much, right? But they are very necessary for to make that matchup become balanced. And the second thing I feel like is there's like one more thing that is conceptual, but given the line of buffs, maybe people don't like the idea. But it was the Ultra Vision change to make that more accessible, since it used to be such a part of the Night Elf like identity. It's become so rare now comparatively to how it used to be. I think that is a bit sad that we can't like find a way to get that more usable in the game. Yeah, that's 2. I guess the third thing I would say, like we've gotten feedback from also 1v1, but also on team-based modes has been pretty universal, is the either cooldown or mana usage on mirror image. It's not like the balance numbers doesn't suggest that like it's super game-breaking overall, but it's just way too strong for like the values. Like it's 3-second cooldown for basically a very strong summon, or a get out of jail spell, basically how it is. So either target the cooldown or mana cost, or do both would be mine. I think that's also pretty obvious like stuff to target. And the one item we should also do something about is Sentry Wards. I think Sentry Wards is like still way too strong. But that's like if I'm going through this tree, I'm not saying every one of those should be included, but if I feel like strongly feel about it would be Banshees, like make Undead Mirror quote unquote great again. And then better at least than it's now, I feel. And then also reduce slightly the power of mirror image, because it also wrecks, like it's bad in all matchups, right? Like in all game modes where feedback has been pretty universal that is a bit too strong currently. And then lastly I would say Sentry Wards. And Ultra Vision is maybe more of a personal thing. I think that would be interesting to get that more usable, to get like that identity back in the game.
Question in chat. Dondo and Orcas mentioned they gather feedback from semi-pros and pros, but where can other people suggest feedback? We are reading everything. We're reading our Discord. We're reading Reddit. We're reading Battle.net forums. We are reading, like, I'm reading Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Well, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just everywhere. Like, if we see a great idea, or if there's a great idea somewhere, we will notice that. We also notice how it's written and if it's well thought out. Like, we kind of, I don't want to say we ignore Herka-Durka, blah, blah, blah's imba lines, but they don't help anybody. But we see value when we see it. Does it make sense? Yeah. We realize value when we see it.
And also, I feel like all players or people that come with suggestions are always like a sum of, well, there's some really unique characters out there that just are living in like a vacuum and just make stuff from their own. But usually people have like they get their stuff also inspired from somewhere, right? So it becomes like this whole thing. So we try to read as much as possible, but I also think like the pro players do get their ideas and thoughts from somewhere as well, right? So it's the more like good suggestions are out there in them, or good suggestion, good feedback, etc. The more the whole discussion becomes enlightened, basically. So yeah,
that's right. Well said. Well said. Trying to see if there's something that we missed from the chat. Battle Pass incoming. Well, they said they're gonna celebrate the 30 years of Warcraft anniversary in the games. So I wonder how Warcraft 3 is celebrating 30 years of Warcraft. Yeah, they're not gonna do anything. I know. I know. It's Hearthstone and it's WoW. I know.
Hey, just now the questions showed up. Yeah, I see it.
Are questions showing up?
No, the same question regarding the 30-year. I have a stream on in the background, right? There's a delay. I get confused.
I'm just reading from through chat from like, when was it? A minute ago, 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. No, but I think this is interesting. I think like we're on a lot. The one thing I would maybe like them to like, one thing I actually would say really high on the list is it would be super nice if you got some signals on like when, how much time do you actually have to like give feedback on this. Right, so that would make it easier for everyone to like. I think it was good last time that they actually had an end date. So that would be like one thing, like practical would be super nice if they did.
And to add to that, please, please, please don't implement crazy universal changes at the end of the PTR cycle when nobody can give feedback on it anymore, like last time with the Moonwells. That was not good.
Yeah, I think like the good way to do it is to say like it's going to be released by some date, and then say like the last, like you don't have to say, of course it's hard to commit that, but maybe you want to do some changes. Maybe you find something in the PTR that's broken and you actually have to do changes. But to maybe like think that the last PTR iteration will be like a couple of weeks before, and if there's new changes at the end there, it will be based on feedback, right? Not just like some random idea, but just like, okay,
yeah. That would be very wonderful. Stefan is asking, and Stefan is a wonderful soul, so you have to answer him. Can you explain again why the narrow damage type change is important? It's less DPS than 2 acolytes attacking.
That says a lot about acolytes, doesn't it? No, I mean it's not important. It is not important at all, I would say. Like, not very important, but it is useful against, specifically, probably, in the rare occasion. But there's also rare occasion because you don't see Warden against Undead as much as you maybe used to. When the Undead goes to Rube Tower Rush, because it gives, though that slightly less damage, is actually quite a lot when the tower is hitting the hero over and over, and archers over and over again. So reduce the damage type there. It might also, like, very marginally, but again, very marginally help for a Night Elf trying to cancel Undead Expo attempts. But that's like the two situations where I can even think of it being marginally useful. A slight buff to nerfs against Dryads later, but I think then it becomes like pretty obsolete as a impactful change. So yeah, that's probably like the thing they targeted. So that would be at least my interpretation. It is, since they don't have like the full reasoning, and it wasn't in like any really widely spread community note I saw, it's kind of hard to know like the full logic behind it. But that's my interpretation, at least.
All right. I have nothing more to say, except that tomorrow we got Happy vs. Lyn. I'm very hyped for that.
It is. You know what? I said this before. I'm really interested to see if Lyn is going to play Orc or Human. I'm just saying it now. He's been practicing Human a lot on ladder.
That would be quite crazy. You told me, I saw it. I haven't seen it in the tournament yet, but he didn't play against Happy yet, so yeah, maybe.
He also I saw he already like 3 days in a row he already practiced Offrace Undead. I don't think he's gonna go Undead Mirror against Happy, so maybe
that
it's
would
just
be suicidal. Yeah,
can be as well. Yeah.
All right, now let's. I got to get some food, and I'm gonna read through all the community feedback and see the excitement and people buzzing. And I guess we hear each other in 2 minutes in the gym Discord voice channel.
Yep. Yeah,
for sure. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We're just two dudes talking about the game we love and try to make it as good as possible. This was 2 hours, I think. Yeah, 2 hours. Yep, pretty much exactly 2 hours. I think we gave the best feedback possible. Of course, we will have second thoughts, etc. That all on streams and on the YouTube. And yeah, spread the hype, I think. And tomorrow, 1 p.m., Happy vs. Lyn. You all be there.